Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we are returning to Burden of Command, an upcoming turn-based war game that is also a leadership role-playing game set during World War II, where you follow a company of soldiers in the Cottonbalers unit from the start of the war in Europe to the conclusion. And so we've just gotten through the training missions, the tutorial, and we're about to go into combat for the first time. Now, we've had 5 tutorials to this point, and that has allowed us to get our troops to be a little bit more experienced here. You can see the first platoon has the first squad in the first platoon, which has 300 experience out of a potential 500. They have been given an extra action or order because they are now considered veterans, which seems a little silly considering that they haven't actually heard the crack of a rifle yet, but whatever, we'll just assume they're some sort of regular unit that is better trained and prepared than perhaps some of the other units. But most of our units have at least 1 star here. Not extra units, they're all still sort of green, but they have at least 1 star for the most part. Our unit is technically the first platoon. Our character, Lieutenant Butcher, is the LT of the first platoon, but I believe we command all of these. I believe we command the whole company. Captain Lamb is our CO, and it seems, based on some of the interactions in the last sort of dialogue bit, that I'm his heir apparent, because he's sort of taken me aside, confided in me, and then we kind of witnessed, like, Lieutenant Wilson, Lieutenant Dearborn, and Stern sort of gossiping amongst themselves about, like, am I actually a good officer? And we'll see when the first gunshot, when I hear the first shot in anger, which is funny considering I don't think, maybe Wilson, but certainly Dearborn and Stern haven't heard any shots in anger, and we're all peers in theory. But yeah, we are about to go ashore in Morocco, facing the Vichy French. We are part of Operation Torch, and that's where our unit is going to land. We're part of the 3rd Infantry Division right now, under Patton, I believe it said in the briefing. And so that's where we find ourselves at the moment. Now, this is being live streamed, as you're watching, on Twitch, but I also have a sleeping 2-week-old that I just fed in the room just next to me with the door open. So if I have to run off and disappear for an hour and this thing ends suddenly, well, that's why. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this thing. This game comes out April 8th, and yeah, it's really leaning into kind of the storytelling nature, the leadership nature. It has mechanics around, how much stress you take over the course of your time. We'll see what happens there. We sort of saw our first experience of stress at the end of the last tutorial mission when our sort of sergeant, who had been sort of guiding you through the tutorial, pushed a officer out of the way of a tank that was backing up. It was muddy, and a tank was starting to bog down, and so the tank was trying to back up, and this was like the end of a training mission. And I guess the officer was trying to, like, read us his report of how we did. He wasn't paying attention. The tank was going to back into him. Our sergeant sort of basically shoved him out of the way to save him. Our sergeant was not able to get out of the way, and I attempted to save him. He was maimed. He was injured and maimed, but he survived. He is no longer in the military, though, because of being maimed and run over and crushed by a tank. And I somehow miraculously escaped any injury. I believe when you make the decision to try and shove him out of the way, you're supposed to get hurt the vast majority of the time. But my lucky stars shone with me, and we did not get hurt. And then in sort of the in-between period, as we were on ship on our way to getting on the Higgins boats here to land in Morocco, there was like a bar, some Browning automatic rifle that got hung up in some cargo netting alongside as people were sort of embarking on the Higgins boat, and I, being the great lieutenant that I am, rather than an NCO, or, the person who got their gun stuck, I, like, crawled up there and was able to get it loose, despite the fact that I was sort of hanging between 2 ships that are kind of going side by side and was risking getting myself crushed. So somehow I managed to survive both those events unscathed, and I'm hoping that has been part of the reason why my officer has 150 trust currently with my soldiers. whereas none of the other officers have over 100. So you can see, like, you've got a heart icon here, which is represented by trust. For officers, that's a trait that only is relevant for officers. Presumably it influences like how well soldiers are going to listen to an officer, how inspiring they will be. There's other metrics here as well, like how many casualties you have in terms of there's two different casualty icons here. There's also combat fatigue, which it doesn't have mine up here, so I'm not sure if it got negated, but anyway. Let's go ahead. That's enough of me rambling. Let's just see what the North Africa scenario has here. Hey, J Street. Red Beach. November 8th, 1942, Morocco. Oh, real quick.
Finally, on the 5th day, we got the news. I mean, what we'd been waiting to hear. They handed out little guidebooks. I remember the first line: "You are to do duty in North Africa as a soldier of the United States."
Okay, so they've got all these little like clips and whatnot before each sort of dialogue period to kind of add a little bit of historical flavor here. Let me know if the audio on that or if my audio is too high or if it's good, but I think it looks like it should be good. Just making one quick tweak here. There we go. All right, so that's not what I want. I don't want there. Good. All right, 8th November, 1942, off the coast of Morocco. It's been 4 hours since you loaded up. The men have long since given up being dry, let alone warm. Your platoon hunkers down in the grumbling belly of the landing boat, huddled together in the moonless dark. Sprays of ocean waves surge over the bow. The rumble of engine pitches upwards. The boat enters yet another slow turn, and the agony of the delay spreads across the tense faces. So yeah, we're on a Higgins boat. Obviously, one of the things that nobody ever talks about in landing operations in World War II is that you don't just get on the boat and go ashore, like, especially for the first waves. There's this whole form-up period. People don't talk about that for World War II aviation either. The hours spent getting units into formation over England and stuff like that. And in this case, we're rumbling around in our landing craft, just waiting to get going. Okay. But they did have ramps. All right. I like these little connotations, like these little historical notes here that you get in the briefings also. Anyway, a dim red light flickers. The coxswain, a young man in a dark blue dungarees, leans forward at the control deck to inspect a fuel gauge, which, with a filtered flashlight, he taps the glass, cover with a worried look on his face, then returns his attention to the dark seas. With both hands, he shifts the control wheel to keep the boat steady amid a flotilla of landing craft, whose engines are far quieter than your own. Absently pull the charging handle on my carbine, increased rapport with the coxswain. Do we meet this coxswain again? Lean back and let the coxswain do his work. Small rapport increased with the coxswain. Stay focused on my men. Our turn will come. I'm not sure what a relationship with this guy is, why it's relevant, but sure, let him do his work. The coxswain keeps both hands on the wheel as he focuses on the seas ahead. Behind him lies the silhouettes of the invasion fleet, black against the starlit sky. White waves surge as other landing boats make a radical turn. Engines deepen their growl in the distance. The coxswain throttles up. Okay. See, Private Roberts held down his Navy chow. High chance of trust +3. Talk with Private Hancock. Morris and Patterson probably have a joke ready. Low chance. I'd want to know what their joke, but if you're telling me it's a low chance of trust +4, I'll just see what... Did he hold down his Navy chow? Roberts has puked in his helmet. Normally that'd be a different issue to solve, but he's readily slings the contents into the darkness and then washes things out with a bit of ocean spray. Just in time, too, because he proceeds to hurl yet more vomit over the side. Trust +3. Though there is nothing you can do for the man, your sympathy is noted by the soldiers who are holding their queasy stomachs. There's no shame in vomiting on this boat ride. You bunch of landlubbers! Arg! A rumble like a freight train passes overhead. A fountain of water bursts into the night sky. White flashes shatter the darkness of the shore. Shells scream overhead toward the transports you left behind. Private Roberts hastily finishes puking over the side. He's now completely done with his breakfast. Sergeant Grant leans over to the private and asks loudly above the din, "You all right, Roberts?" Naval bombardment occurred after it became clear that the French would oppose the landing. The coded order behind this decision was very American. Play ball! I did not know that. All right. This particular photograph is of HMS Belfast bombarding Normandy in June 1944. Okay, well, not the same thing, but okay. How could I not be? Private Roberts replies. He tries at a weak smile, clearly more for Grant's benefit than his own. I'm off that rusty bathtub of a ship, and no one shot me yet. This is about as good as it gets, Sarge. Some of the men volunteer to be here. Others did not. Private Hancock edges to Robert's side. Come up front. The air is better up there, trust me. The engine sputters down. No, by the way, no, I'm not going up front. I've seen Saving Private Ryan. The engine sputters, dying down to a low rumble. You turn to see the coxswain heaving the wheel of the helm with all his might, eyes wide in terror. That's not good. You lurch to the side as the boat goes into a hard turn away from the shore. Sergeant Grant helps you to stand back up. What the hell is this swabby doing? Grant asks as his boat keeps turning. Shove the coxswain from the hand. No, I'm not going to take command. I'm a fucking lieutenant in the Army. What do I know about boats? Trust the coxswain not to screw. I mean, what other choice do I have? The coxswain reaches for the throttle and the engine roars back to life. He jerks the wheel over. Something dark beneath the water flashes past on either side. Ahead, another boat capsizes, spilling its human cargo into the sea. Jesus Christ. One of the things I will say this game does, and, you know, maybe it's just through the narrative elements, but it really does give a sense of, like, people dying for stupid reasons, which is very in tune with both peacetime and wartime military. But we had a guy get run over by a tank in training in the last, episode, and now we've got boats just capsizing through, I don't know if it's incompetence, but certainly inexperience with landing operations and maneuvering these out at sea. You hear Captain Lamb shout above the din as your boat zips past. Wait, so another boat capsizes, spilling its human cargo into the sea. You hear Captain Lamb shout out above the din as your boat zips past. Was Captain Lamb in that boat? The coxswain slows the engine, turns the wheel hard once, twice, and then throttles up once more. The sonar's vibration ripples through beneath your feet. Africa has reefs mostly along its eastern and southern coasts. Mostly Morocco is a treacherous exception. What the hell was that? A reef! Not on the maps, coxswain says, and lets out a weary sigh, never taking his gaze from his task. Madre de Dios, but I'm glad it's past. The vibration slowly fades away. He takes a deep breath, clears his throat, and at last looks to you. 100 yards from the landing, Lieutenant. Which one seems like a pale line on the horizon is now a vast expanse of dawnlit sand. We'll be exposed until we reach the dunes. We must move fast inland. Countless drills were for this moment. Move fast and inland. The hull shudders beneath you. The coxswain throttles back the engines in the quiet. Afterward, he yells, "Debark now!" "I see sand," Private Hancock yells from the bow, and then leaps over the side. Okay, so these are photos from... This is a photo from Morocco, I guess, up here. Colorized, obviously. All right, come on! You leap over the side into the waist-deep water. Your men follow. The moment you drop into the surf, the chill of the ocean numbs your toes. The awful stink of gasoline thickens the air as you struggle onto the sand. All around lie wrecked boats and sprawled men. This is one big snafu, Patterson grouses as he crawls forward, belly against the sand. Half the French army's shooting at me. French army, what's that? G. Morris replies as he hugs the beach just a few feet away. Maybe they're tired of you flapping gums already. Getting ashore is only the beginning. This particular photograph was taken near Algiers on the 8th of November, 1942. For these lucky soldiers, there were no shooting as the French did not fire. For the Cottonbalers on Red Beach, it was a different reception. Okay. You blink aside the sting of salty spray and a spy of a huddle of men just a few yards off. Sergeant Grant is among them, his feature etched by flashes of distant gunfire. Lieutenant, Sergeant Grant calls to you. First and second squads are here, but the third squad scattered itself good. Can't even find Roberts. 20-odd men from your platoon. A bare 2 squads of queasy salt-splashed soldiers. Okay, where's the rest of the company? Wherever the rest of Nickel Company is, that isn't here. Corporal Crossley presses his bar to his... Hey, and we got him his bar back. Huzzah! If I hadn't, like, played, you know... I don't know... Twister on the mesh nettings, we wouldn't have his bar. Okay. Corporal Crossley passes his bar to his assistant and then recovers a .30 cal that dangles from a wrecked boat, adopting it into the platoon's arsenal of democracy. Just like that, you've got a machine gun. Ocean waves crash in, drenching your men afresh. You have to get them moving. Off the beach! Let's go! So I can do one of 3 things. I can either shout for the French to surrender, which reduces French morale. I can rally the 3rd squad, which would give me a 3 full squad complement, or remove the fog of war. Let's remove the fog of war. You lead your way forward, your men follow in loose columns, spreading out as they go. As boats crunch dry sand, the silhouette of an American helmet emerges. In the flare of distant guns, you see upon it the silver oak leaves of a lieutenant colonel. What the fuck? Lieutenant, the lieutenant colonel barks as he waves at your man over to his position behind a small swell of sand. Lieutenant Colonel Roy Moore, commander of the 1st Battalion of the 7th Infantry Regiment. Salute? No, I'm not saluting. Sniper check! That I am, Lieutenant Colonel Moore replies evenly as a salvo of shells scream overhead. I don't recognize you, son. Who are you with? The metallic rattle of the machine gun fills the air once more. A panicked scream rises high and raw before being cut short. Cassian, if you're not familiar, after France was defeated, so if you're not familiar, the current situation is after France was defeated in 1940, the French sued for peace or had a peace imposed upon them, and the Nazis allowed a French sort of collaborator state to be set up called Vichy France. It was led by Marshal Pétain of World War I fame. He became notorious, basically, for being the head of this sort of pro-fascist French state. It made up most of southern France. Northern France remained largely occupied by Germany. And eventually the south would be sort of increasingly too. But initially, anyway, the south remained some semblance of autonomy. Under German suzerainty anyway. And they maintained control over certain French colonies, and they resisted Allied attempts to, give them the French fleet. There were a number of battles that were fought between the British and the French over the French Navy, the fate of the French Navy. And then in 1942, it was sort of viewed as the soft underbelly of North Africa to kind of get in behind Rommel. Because the French occupied Morocco and Algeria. And so the Americans and the Allies had hoped that the French would surrender and just sort of let them come through and join the fight. And there was a whole bunch of political dealings around that. But in some places, it didn't work out that way, and the Americans ended up fighting those French soldiers, the Vichy French, who were there. There were other French contingents, the Free French, under de Gaulle, who would fight alongside the Americans and the British. But the actual state of France, Vichy France, was not pro-Allied. So de Gaulle was basically like I don't know. I'm not like an expert in this part of history. Someone in the chat might know more, but I would almost call de Gaulle kind of a renegade in that he was like leading forces who wanted to continue to fight against the Nazis, but they were not the official representatives of the French government at this time. Kind of like an army in exile. Okay. Anyway, so back to the playing. All right. I'm with Nickel Company. Oh, I'm with you, sir. Sarcasm. Pathfinders for the 3rd Battalion. Verbosity indirectly. 1st Platoon, Nickel Company, 3rd Battalion. I guess that gives him all the info he needs. Although maybe that's too much? We'll just say Pathfinders for the 3rd Battalion. That's all he needs to know. Nickel Company, right. Lieutenant Moore considers. A sly grin creases his features. Well, as of now, you're working for me. Understood? Understood. You don't have to like it, but you will follow. That's the Army way. Lieutenant Colonel Moore glares at you. Right now, I need you to lead these men forward. If I were dangling captain's bars in front of you, afterwards, if you... Wait, what? Lead these men forward if I were dangling captain's bars in front of you. Afterwards, if you... Okay. That's a strange sentence, unless I'm just not reading it right. The crack of the machine gun fire drowns out whatever the lieutenant colonel was going to say next. He stabs a finger toward the flashes on the rise that overlooks the beach. Go get that son of a bitch before he stitches up any more of our men. That is definitely an order. All right. Take the machine gun position is the mission. The men suffer no more than light casualties. All right, so this is a small battle compared to some of the stuff we've been fighting before. There's an MG up here on the hill, small map, but the MG controls the entire map. There's one spot on this map the MG does not control. There also does appear to be an enemy unit here as well. I don't see an MG up here, but I thought we got rid of Fog of War, so... Anyway, who's this guy back here? Is this the colonel? Lieutenant Colonel. Yeah, okay, so he acts as the captain, I assume. Can we... So we've got infantry up here. We've also potentially got more bad guys out this way. We don't have any artillery support. Did we do the trait where I get to crawl for 2 spaces? Doesn't look like it. How many turns do I have? 5? This is a short one. I could use some damn artillery. There's some crenellations in the ground here that can see me, but maybe there's some cover. Doesn't really look like it, but... Alright, so we've got an MG back here. I'd like to... Let's do this. Can we do a fire by recon? Are they in range? Yeah, we can. Alright. Nice French. You heard him! Alright, so there's the MG up here, and then there's just a regular infantry group down here, I guess. So, to that end, keep the MG fire up on this guy. Gotta try and suppress him. Alright, so they are red, which indicates full suppression, I believe. So not really any sense in suppressing them again, but we will try and suppress the infantry down here. Maybe we can get them into full suppression too. Ooh, they got some stress. And we gained a little bit of experience. So there's some indication that we'd be going into a fire zone here, but with these guys suppressed, I think... Oh no, they're all gonna be... Okay. Alright, anyway, Bolster these guys to give them a little bit more morale. And then move them forward. Risk exposed to fire, but... Why did they get a bunch of stress here? Why, it looks like they're got a whole bunch of red things. Alright, let's move to this building. I'm assuming this is some cover. We can't move any of my other units. This is for second squad, third squad, first squad. We've still got the lieutenant colonel. He can go ahead and give these guys commands too. So let's do this. Let's have him bolster, because he can bolster anyone adjacent to him. Their morale is not great. I'm assuming it's because they're like disorganized, but they can head out this way. So we'll move over here. They will end. Aw. They decide not to do that. Okay. Can we bolster them again? They failed the morale check, basically. Alright, they didn't fail the second time. Looks like we've got the enemy suppressed enough that they didn't shoot at our squads as we closed in on them. And that's all my movement points. So we'll end the turn. Do the French shoot back? Not right now. Alright. So Lieutenant Butcher, go ahead and bolster these guys. Colonel's MG is going to go ahead and keep the heads down on the enemy MG. They're already maximum suppressed. I just trying to keep their heads down further. Keep them hugging the rocks there up on this hill. Remember, this appears to be a fairly basic scenario here. They don't appear to be already bolstered. Okay. They don't appear to be a complex battle. Okay, so we managed to knock them out. Can we charge twice? So we knocked the first squad out. Can we go second time? Yeah! With a primal cry, you and your men rush toward the enemy. Rifle fire flashes in the dark. The sputtering of their machine gun abruptly ceases with a telltale clank. Clank. Jammed. Thank God. As you crest the firing pit, you find yourself face to face with a pair of French soldiers beside their machine gun, one dark and one pale. The nearest man bangs hastily on the receiver with a hammer, while the other strains to shift the stuck bolt. Your squad falls upon them, shooting, kicking, and screaming. One of them manages a last scream, the other goes down right after the gun pit is captured. Major victories. Okay, so major victory. We didn't take any casualties, so that's good. At least as far as I'm aware, it didn't tell me anything happened when we did our little melee there. Yeah, it was kind of like a, ah! You know, maybe they were cheering our victory. And then also major victory for my officer. I'm sure the colonel was thrilled that we took one of the things, and that's why I charged twice with them rather than being a little bit cautious. One, if it looks like you've got all the enemy pinned, go for the throat, because they can recover, take advantage of it. But then also, too, like, the faster you win battles, the more sort of your reputation goes up for the brass. I don't know that the men care. So, like, if you're trying to get a good score, part of that is like, oh, you might have 5 turns to win the battle, but if you do 5 turns exactly, you're kind of doing the bare minimum. You're kind of quiet quitting. And so, you know, you want to do better than that. Okay, no one out of action, sir.
Off Casablanca stood the convoy from America. To the troops aboard spoke their commander, General Patton.
Soldiers and sailors, it is not known whether the French African army will contest our landing. But all resistance, by whomever offered, must be destroyed. However, when any of the French soldiers seek to surrender, you will accept it and treat them with the respect due a brave opponent and future ally. Remember, the French are not Nazis or Japs.
Okay. A flash of distant shells. Boat after boat crashes onto the shore. Okay, major victory. Objective seized before turn 4. Major victory. Casualties numbered fewer than 4. We didn't take any casualties. Okay. Getting a... yeah, we already saw that. The men stagger and collapse with relief near the broken empty machine gun. Cigarettes are lit by shaking hands. Sergeant Grant immediately shouts at them to snuff the flame. You order the picket set. Yeah, dude, don't fucking smoke on the hilltop. All you are is a beacon to enemy spotters and artillery. Sergeant Grant immediately shouts at them to snuff the flame. Your orders pickets set to warn against any counterattack while Grant supervises an inspection of salt-encrusted equipment and plenty of minor wounds. In the distance, artillery continues to thunder, both incoming and outgoing. The war continues, but right here, right now, you have won your first victory. Soaked to the skin and spitting out seawater and sluggish from carrying so much drenched equipment, they fanned out along the coast. Enemy searchlights probed the area, and an inaccurate machine gun fire could be heard coming from Fidelia and its environs. McManus, ACAC. I need a... McManus is like the he's the author... He's been an author of a number of books. Hauser, if he's in the chat, knows more of his work. But, yeah, he's a historian who I believe is like the historical advisor for the game. Or one of them. Victory can be tiring, but less so than defeat. This particular image shows soldiers resting after landing operations at Fidelia. Okay. Where the hell is Roberts anyway? Private Patterson asks between shaky drags on a smoldering cigarette. You're about to enter a crucible. Mindset chart. Your development as a leader. You may add additional mindsets as your perspective on how to accomplish tasks increases. Mindsets also influence gameplay both on and off of the battlefield. A crucible occurs whenever traumatic events unfold and represent the internal struggle soldiers undertake in order to come to grips with the impact of the war. There is no single answer to this riddle. Choose thoughtfully. Smoke drifts past and brings the scent of a burnt cordite. The enemy's rough gun pit is littered with the detritus of battle. Spent casings, discarded clips, and a crumpled figure in an olive drab at the edge. A low moan rises up as you and Sergeant Grant hurry over to the fallen soldier. Dawn strips away the darkness to reveal an American private, splinters of a shattered rifle beside him. From the look of it, he's been here longer than your platoon. He clutches at his chest, blood seeping beneath his fingers. Oh, God, the wounded soldier wheezes out plaintively, gulping down a ragged breath. The less involved I am with this, the better. Cold! Cold. Sounds like dude's a goner. I don't want to risk my men. What can't... I mean, I don't know enough to know what we can do. See what we can do. You kneel beside the wounded soldier, the sand shifting beneath your knee. Sergeant Grant does the same. The wounded man's eyes shift toward you. Lieutenant? His voice is wet and croaking, but it's only once you've heard. It's one you've heard many times. Hancock. You blink hard. Beneath the blood and sand, it's Hancock. What am I doing? I'm not a medic. Whatever. Apply pressure. I know that much, right? You place your hand atop the wound. The blood is warm and sticky as it covers your skin, slowly pumping out of Hancock's chest. The blood won't stop. Sergeant Grant shifts Hancock's bloody dog tags aside to give you a better angle. Private Hancock shudders. His clammy skin is deathly pale, so cold, he says, "Oh, now he's gonna die." It could be worse. Lie or tell him the truth? I don't know, dudes. What do? Do you lie to a guy when he's dying? Do you tell him the truth? Maybe I should have risked my men to find him a medic. Ugh. I didn't want to risk it for a stranger. I got through the battle without loss, and now this guy apparently died, like, outside. I don't know which unit he's in, but he didn't die in the assault on the machine gun. He won't survive to resent me, I guess. Alright, give him a chaplain. Oh. His hand falters. The book falls into the sand. We'll keep fighting your fight. That's not... Fuck that. He doesn't care about that. I guess who do I write to? That might give him some solace if I write to someone he knows. The men watch from cover as Sergeant Grant reaches out and lifts the thin paperback from where it fell atop the sand. The red badge of courage. Huh. Grant reads softly from the tattered covers as a star shell arcs across and casts a pale yellow glow above. He tries to figure out how to tuck it back into the deceased's pockets without forcing the issue. My father gave me a copy before I joined up. Guess I wasn't the only one. Huh. Okay. A bookmark falls from the pages. A black and white photograph of a high school football team with a dozen young men looking toward the camera with conviction. Hancock is one of them. The Kirbyville High School football team, image courtesy of Jill Carlson from the collection of Mr. D.T. Kent, Kirbyville, Texas. Okay, so the blood on the corner definitely looks like it was sort of added, but it's a real photo of a team. I don't know that anyone on the team died. You did everything you could, and he is still dead. The men are silent, reverent as they look to the sky, down at the sand, or off to the distance. They too are trying to make sense of it all. Plus 20 combat fatigue, plus 1 realism. Realism is how well you deal with combat fatigue, which I don't understand the scoring. That has not been made clear to me. I do know that combat fatigue, when it gets to 100, sort of ticks you up toward a break or something like that. And trust with my men went up 15. Grant's hands shake as he passes over one of the dog tags. The other returns to the body. Your fingers brush aside the sand and grit as you grasp the metal square. The edges stick with blood. The Army's summary of Hancock's life lies in your hands, along with the name of his next of kin, Helen Hancock, 107 North 27th Street, Lincoln, Nebraska. Probably his wife. They'll still be getting they'll be getting a terrible telegram. Hancock should have used his grenade or tried something else. Then you could be writing the report that would give him a medal instead of this. Sergeant Grant gathers a burial detail. He drives his entrancing spade into the earth. The dead soldier's helmet goes on top of the mark where he fell. Okay. These moments are not for one man, but our unit. Discipline acquired. Combat fatigue. Realism. Graves registration will take things from here. Professionalism mindset acquired. Combat fatigue. Realism. Hancock died because he couldn't think of another way. What? He charged and it nearly worked. Well, I went with the cunning mindset. I don't know what this means, but I'm going to go with it because it advances my cunning mindset. Although I would say that, like, to a certain extent, if I was to say, like, what I think, I'm wondering if one is, like, you know, obviously leaving a rifle in the ground or a spade in the ground with a helmet feels more for the units than it does for the individual. But anyway, let's advance the cunning mindset. Soldiers are trained for battle, but that doesn't mean they go into combat prepared for it. Private Hancock could have done ever so much more if he'd acted at a more fortuitous moment. Luck only gets you so far before you have to drag it with you. Okay. Nearby, the men of the first squad crouch in the dark as artillery thunders in the distance. They too are thinking about Hancock. They too are trying to figure it out. Hell of a thing, Sergeant Grant says softly. It hits hard, you know, and the younger guys will take it even harder. I hope I can help them. Nobody really goes untouched by their first bloody fight. In the last war, they called it shell shock and tried to figure out how to treat it so that veteran soldiers could keep fighting. From the Epic of Gilgamesh to present days, soldiers have dealt with the strain of battle in different ways. Every day, every loss will eat away at them, blotting out their joys until they either fall into despair or break. Every time a unit takes, or to a lesser extent inflicts, casualties, they gain combat fatigue. They may also gain it when they are heavily suppressed by the enemy. Combat fatigue persists from scenario to scenario, and the more it has, the greater the chance it will acquire a point of stress that will lower the effectiveness of morale of a unit. Time away from combat helps the most. Good leadership may keep the men together. At first, the fatigue will be unmanageable. I will do what I can for them. Okay. Between scenarios, you may have a chance to lower the combat fatigue, but you'll never eliminate it completely. A good leader can keep the men focused and on task by having a chat, giving a speech, or even dressing down a dispirited soldier. Oh god, let's not slap anyone now, huh? This is the usual way to reduce combat fatigue, and it works a little, but it can never fully eliminate what has been built up. Green soldiers will rapidly gain combat fatigue, veterans less so. Okay. I'm curious how this all plays out, but yeah. A deep voice abruptly bellows from the dark. Hold your fire! Officer coming through! You turn to see Captain Lamb striding toward you, silhouetted against the dark by flashes of artillery fire. Walking before him is a wet, sand-covered and utterly weaponless Private Roberts. The enlisted man's eyes are wide and fearful as the captain prods him forward. I believe this one is one of ours, Captain Lamb asks you pointedly. Yep, he's part of the platoon. I'm tempted to ask if you need him back, Captain Lamb says. All my runners went in the drink when we hit a reef, and I haven't seen one of them yet. Do we shoot cowards? Well, you're not going to make him a runner if he's a coward, right? Or rather, he drove a truck. I mean, just look at him. He may have lost his weapon, but he's here. May have lost his weapon, but he's here. True, but not convincing, Captain Lamb notes. Roberts gives a little gulp, and the captain fixes him with a weighty gaze of a disappointed father. I want to hear what he's got to say for himself. Sergeant Grant cocks a skeptical glance at the bedraggled private. Nearby, Morris and Patterson lean in to listen. On the beach, a new line of Higgins boats slowly gropes its way toward the shore. The place where Hancock's body lies, Robert's friend, is just a few steps away. Roberts, Hancock just died taking this gun. Private Roberts stares at you, eyes blinking in the gray dawn light. No, he was... I was just... He looks to Sergeant Grant. Grant tenders over a small shake of his head. Robert shoots a glance at Morris and Patterson, but there's nothing funny to be said. At last, Robert turns back to you. Something shifts behind his eyes as he stuffs down a rising anger at the loss of his friend. I understand. Thanks for telling me. I'm confused. Why am I talking like this to this dude? Like telling him the guy's dead, but like this little bit is a little confusing. Unless this is just like my inner monologue, I'm not really sure. Broken up, Roberts replies. Of course it hurts, but I can't tell how bad, and it doesn't matter anyway. My friend is dead, and someone's gonna pay for that. Dude's on a revenge tour. So dude's gonna become a hero? Or, you know, go on a vengeance. Hopefully he doesn't shoot any prisoners. I don't want rival with a... downgrade my initial feeling. I'm not sure I want Roberts in this platoon right now. Find a rifle, Private. Morris finds him a weapon, and Roberts inspects it with a steady eye. I can't just like go. We just lost one soldier. I can't just like send another away. We literally just landed on the beach. Lieutenant Colonel Moore approaches, kicking up sand as he goes. He heads right for Captain Lamb. Captain, I require this platoon. Cutting off Lamb's startled reply, he turns to you. Lieutenant, I know you'll be wanting to catch your breath, but I need you and your men back on your feet. You've got one of the few units on this beach that made it ashore intact. You must have had one hell of a coxswain, and let me tell you, I want him promoted. He glances over his shoulder at the dark beach where the next wave is navigating the approach. Roberts extracts his flashlight, no doubt to examine his new rifle, but Morris halts the man before the other private can flick it on. Now, when I give you the order to fight, you did just that, the lieutenant colonel notes, having thankfully missed the little exchange between privates. And you got things done in a neat trice. We all need more of that now. There's a group of German officers, old nags from the last war, they've put back into harnesses on an armistice commission that bullies the French around. Secure them from the Hotel Miramar in Fidelia before they can run off into the desert on us. You gotta move quick. Company A will be there to hold your hand when the French finally wake up, understand? Okay. Alright, sure. Yes, sir. I'm not gonna salute you on a beach. Man, this game just wants you to pull sniper checks. We'll find a way to do it, sir. Be creative, but get my Germans, preferably before breakfast, Lieutenant Colonel Moore says. A crack of wood heralds yet another boat broaching upon the reef. Lieutenant Colonel Moore motions for Lamb to follow as he stalks away, yelling and cursing at the waterlogged arrivals. Captain Lamb catches your eye. You know what to do, Captain Lamb calls out over the din. The rest of Nickel Company will be along. Then he turns and follows the Lieutenant Colonel back to the chaos along the shore. Okay, so we gotta go capture some Germans. Alright, I do like these like little historical mementos. Let's go ahead and check this. So we've got a good chunk of loyalty and prestige to spend. I've gotten to a level 2 star for my officer. We didn't get to fight with 2nd or 3rd platoon or 4th platoon yet. My 1st platoon is almost to a 4th star, experience-wise. We'll go ahead and get my 3rd platoon up here. I think I can spend... The funny thing is, like, none of these guys did anything in this fight, but I can still spend on upgrading their prestige. It seems silly, though, to give them credit when they weren't there. But I also don't want to be going in with green troops either. I'd like everybody to at least have 1 experience star, so... Let's do 2nd platoon. They're closest to an even 25. So they get to 100. So now 2nd platoon has all but 1 star. Thanks, Mace. Glad you like it. And then maybe we give myself some experience? Alright, so 2nd platoon is almost all 1 star as well. So we've got 2 squads here, or not 2nd platoon, 2 squads here. 1 squad in 2nd platoon, 1 in 3rd that are not yet to at least the minimum of 100 experience to not be totally green. And then the rest are all 1 star or better. We have 1 3-star unit, the 1st squad, 1st platoon, and in fact, they're the one who did most of the charging for me in that last battle. I think these scores carry over. All right, but the next episode's going to be a bit long, so we'll wrap this up here at around 50 minutes, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer playing Burden of Command. And with that said, we're out. Bye-bye.